All right, everybody, what is going on? How y'all doing? Welcome to today's edition of SWAC Talk, the show we cover the SWAC inside and out. I'm your tour guide around the SWAC. See Wells coming at you, and it is now week two, week one in the books. I guess you could say the typical week one. Now we're in week two, another week full of non-conference games, 12 non-conference games. We're going to take a little look at each one of these games. There are some D2 games, there's some FBS games. There's a couple FCS matchups. So, it's the full gamut of your choice. 7 SWAC teams have home openers this week. So, only Alcorn Valley and Prairie View Alcorn Valley and Texas Southern, have yet to play a home game. So, their time will be coming. But, there's a lot to be discovered after this week, because last week really didn't give a lot of leeway and intricate looks in the teams. So we'll kind of look at what's on the docket. So with that being said, man, y'all make sure y'all hit those socials: Facebook is Swag Talk, Instagram Swag Talk, Twitter Swag Talk 76. Don't forget we have our Pick'em contest. We are on week 2. Week 1 was great. Had a great turnout on it. So far, it looked like got a pretty good turnout for week 2. Don't forget you have up until like 12 p.m. Central Time on Saturday to get your picks in. The winner will receive a championship belt, man. We put it together. We're gonna have it at the once you win, we'll have your name put on it. So you'll be getting that after Celebration Bowl. So keep on competing. And give yourself a chance to win that belt, man, and become the Swag Smoke, Swag Talk, Pick'em champ. So far it's been pretty good, man. We had a lot of people had almost perfect predictions last week. So let's see how it goes this week. And I'll post I'll post the updated standings probably after this week, just to give everybody an idea where everybody stands. All right. So after that, don't forget to like the video, comment, and subscribe, man. We're on the march to 1,500 subscribers. So if you can kindly hit that subscribe button, it'll be much appreciated. And, hit that notification bell as well to be alerted to any video that drop. Also, Thursday is SWAC Smoke live, 6 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. Eastern. Sunday will be our Week 12 recap. And after some waiting and deliberating and debating, I decided to do my first HBCU top 10 next week. So that show will probably be dropping on Tuesday. I also probably have some thoughts on anything of note from the coaches teleconference, which is typically not much, but every now and then somebody will drop a nugget in there. So I'll probably talk about that there. And then next Wednesday will be our week 3 preview. So like I said, we are 2 weeks into the season, second full week of the season. Everybody's playing. Everybody's playing non-conference games, so we'll see how this goes. So let's go ahead and start with our first matchup of the week, and that is Bethune-Cookman hosting Mercer, the Mercer Bears. That's a 1 p.m. Central Time kick on the SWAC Digital Network, so you can catch that online. This game is going to be a test for Bethune-Cookman, because Mercer comes into this game 1-0. They beat Presbyterian 63-10. They finished that game with 139 yards on the ground. So not a spectacular rushing day. They held Presbyterian to seven to wait what they held Presbyterian to -7. I had to look at that a couple of times. They held Presbyterian to -7 yards on the day. Tremendous defensive effort on 31 carries. So it wasn't through lack of effort. They just could not run the ball on Mercer. Mercer finished with 361 yards through the air. They were 25 of 30. They did have one interception. They threw 4 touchdowns. They allowed Presbyterian to throw for 144 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions, giving them a total yardage of 500 yards, even for the Bears, 7.6 yards per play. They did score 9 touchdowns, as I stated earlier. Presbyterian finished with 137 yards, and the one touchdown. Third downs, they were 8 of 11 for 72%, and 1 for 1 on fourth down. They allowed 20% conversion rate on third down and 50% on fourth down. They finished with 5 sacks. They did allow 2 sacks, but all in all, this was a dominant effort for them. Some of the names to look out for them are Dwayne McGee. He was the leading rusher on the night with 57 yards on the ground and one touchdown. DJ Smith was the quarterback of note. He finished 20 or 24 for 331 yards, one interception and 3 touchdowns. He was he was very accurate, obviously completing 83% of his passes. The leading receiver was Braden Smith. He had 3 catches for 83 yards and a touchdown. Also, Kendall Harris had 5 catches for 72 yards on the night. Defensively, Marquez Thomas finished with 7 tackles. He also had 1.5 tackles for loss. Braden Manley also had 1.5 tackles for loss, and Carson Griffin had 1.5 tackles for loss. Griffin also had 1.5 sacks, and Isaac Downing, and Miles Redding had interceptions. So it's not a lot you can take from obviously from one game, but um, Presbyterian is an FBS team, and they're not a great team by any means, but this was a dominant effort for Mercer. They a team who wants to throw the ball, and they threw the ball very well in that game. Defensively, they shut down the run game, and didn't really give up much through the air, even though their team could not run the ball. So they had a pretty all around effort on both sides of the ball, and so that's going to be a tough task for Bethune Cookman, who played decently against USF, lost their game 48-3. Offensively was a rough night for them, 48 yards rushing, 122 yards passing, 2 interceptions. Um, Defensively allowed 231 yards on the ground and 172 through the air. Um, Only converted 16% on third downs, which was an issue last season. They did have 3 sacks. They allowed 3 sacks as well. But when you look at where this team is, they do have to try to find a way to generate a run game. Um, I think they need, I think they're going to commit to trying to do that. Courtney Reese was the leading rusher on Saturday with 18 yards 16 yards on the night. Uh, Cam Ransom was the starter. He got the bulk of the snaps. He was 12 and 19 in this game. So will he be the guy this week? That remains to be seen. I'm sure he will. Completed 63% of his passes, but not great numbers. Um, he's a guy who doesn't, hasn't played a whole lot, didn't play at all last season, so he's still kind of figuring the ropes out. Lorenzo Jenkins caught 5 passes for 53 yards. He was a big target for them on Saturday, so you kind of probably expect him to get some more looks. And they just have to find a way to consistently move the ball down the field in this game. Last season, the offense wasn't explosive. This season, obviously, against the FCS opponent, not much explosiveness. The longest pass on the night was 19 yards. The longest run on the night was 12 yards. So, just not a lot of explosiveness. Obviously, like I said, the FBS game, so only so much you can take from that. But their offense has to be more explosive. Darius Thomas was the leading tackler on the night with 8. He had 2 tackles for loss and 1 sack, so really good game. You kind of expect him to be one of the guys taking charge on this defense. From his linebacker position, you can kind of expect him to continue to make some plays as the rest of the defense kind of gels around him. Last season, they kind of had an underrated defense, and I think the defense is probably going to be pretty solid again this year. This is a tough test. I think the secondary is really going to be tested in this game. They have to get pressure on the quarterback and try to make them uncomfortable. And they're gonna have to try to find a way to run the ball at some point in this game and in the season, because I don't think Bethune Cookman is capable of being a team to just sit back and pass on you. So I think that they will I think it's gonna be a tough go. But I think they'll be game. But I like Mercer in this game, but I scored 31-14. I know that's not a great score for SWAC, but I think these two teams are kind of in different places right now. But Bethune-Cookman can make a great statement if they come out and they play well in this game. Um, Playing at home definitely helps. So the opportunity for you to make a move and impress is right there. So we'll see how the Wildcats come out in that one. That takes us to our next game, which is our first FBS game on the schedule, and that's Florida A&M at Miami. The Rattlers, that game is a 4 o'clock p.m. Central Time kickoff. Um, the Rattlers have been living on the edge, man. They've been playing with fire. Um, they've been finding ways to win. Last week, they had to come back from behind, double-digit margin in the second half against Norfolk. They had to come from behind, double-digit margin in the first half. They've just been kind of escaping, but there's talent there, and a lot of it is a team that's still trying to gel under Coach Colsey. So, some of it is expected, some of it's, kind of not. I think some of the issues that they've kind of had on defense, on the defensive line, especially, are glaring, but those are things that can be fixed. So, you're not going to put a lot of stock into it, at least for the next couple of weeks. I mean, obviously, there's there's a couple of games too that you can kind of use as an example. Um, not too much that you could take from this game. Um, the next FCS game they play, I think that's when you kind of get an idea of if the problems they've been having are a trend, or they are just kind of situational things that happen. They're playing a Miami Hurricanes team who had a tremendous game Saturday against the Gators of Florida, 41-17 victors. Some people, most people thought Miami would win this game, but the margin of victory was surprising. So you're playing a team that's discovered some explosiveness. Their offense was solid, 385 yards passing on the night, 529 yards of total offense defensively. Gave up 122 yards through the air and 261 on the total offense. Their running attack, 144 yards. They did allow 139 on the ground to Florida, but they like I said, they basically dominated this game. They had a decent first half, but they pulled away in this game and really just kind of blew it open in the second and third quarters. They scored 31 combined points to kind of make this game put this game out of reach. Some of the leaders from the game was Cam Ward, a quarterback transfer from Washington State by way of Incarnate Word. 26 of 35, 385 yards, 3 touchdowns, did have one interception, and was sacked once. Damian Martinez, transfer from Oregon State, finished with 65 yards on 15 carries. They had three guys who got the bulk of the carries. Mark Fletcher had 2 touchdowns on 7 carries, 23 yards. Cam Ward also ran for 33 yards. So he's a guy who can get out the pocket and make some things with his legs. He is prone to fumbling, so if the Rattlers can get their hands on him, maybe he turns over one or two. Xavier Restrepo continues to be that possession guy for them. He can hit big plays down the field, but he's the guy who's probably going to get the bulk of the targets at receiver. Finished with 7 catches, 112 yards, and 1 touchdown. They had, they're breaking in some new guys. Jacoby George is another guy who played a lot last season, so didn't have a great game on Saturday, but he's a guy that you probably can expect to kind of step up to the plate as they develop. Jaden Harris and Francisco Muyago lead the defense. They had 7 and 6 tackles respectively. Like I said, this is going to be obviously a tough task. Not only is the fact that you're playing an FBS team, a Power 4 team, but you're playing a team who had a very great game last week. A lot better than even they probably expected. So for FAMU, the running game, hasn't really been as great as you would like it to be. But they found ways to survive. Daniel Richardson is having a pretty solid season. The offense has shown those flashes of being a really good offense. They do know how to make the plays when they're there. You're looking at a team who averaging 125 yards on the ground and 284 through the air. They've been victimized in the run game on defense, allowing 190 yards per game, which it's tough to compare one unit from last season to this season, but this was a unit that barely allowed 100 yards rushing last season. So that's something that you kind of want to see them clean up as they go through the season. Um, not like I said, I'm not gonna put a lot of stock in this game. I just want to see them come out and play a clean game. Maybe develop some run game a little bit better. Keep the passing game going. Daniel Richardson right now he has 568 yards, six touchdowns, and no interceptions. Um, when he goes to the air, Kobe Gross, that tight end, has been a big target for him. 9 catches, 151 yards, one touchdown. Jamar Gassett also has 9 catches for 118 yards and two touchdowns. Their defense, like I said, they've been kind of tough struggling against the run, but Andre Powell and Deco Wilson at safety has been a guy who's really been making a lot of plays. Um, and just stepping up for that defense. Of course, Kendall Bowler is a guy who is gonna make plays for your defense. Um, like I said, when I look at games like this, you just kind of want to be able to get off to a good start. I think Miami's playing really well. I think they're on a mission this season. As much as it pains me to say that, but I think they win this game 52-14. I think FAMU scores early, then I think they score maybe right at the half. I think Miami's just playing on a different level right now. Although I do hope the Rattlers can put some venom in the Hurricanes. That would be great. But right now, I think some of the issues that they're having stopping the run are going to be magnified in a game like this. So that's why I feel the way I feel. Moving on to our next game, and boy, did this game get interesting. As the week has progressed, and that's Alabama State hosting Miles. That's a 5 p.m. kickoff. One of the things about this game is we at least there. Let's start with Sunday. Sunday against North Carolina Central, the Hornets played a baffling game. They played two quarterbacks. Basically the bulk of the game, they put Jonah O'Brien in on obvious passing downs, and then Andrew Body ran the ball 15 times on the night. So you kind of dictated what you were going to do by the guy that was in there. They did play them both at once. Andrew Body caught one pass for 9 yards, and then he went down with injury. Jonah O'Brien went down with injury. So where these guys stand, that's gonna be tough. I don't like I said, I don't know the availability of anybody right now, so I'm not gonna really speak on that part. But if guys are not available, this game becomes a whole lot tougher than what it was, because number one, Miles has given Bama State all they want the last few years, and they beat them last season. So if you don't have the weapons that you anticipated having coming into this game, and your offense, even though they battled in that game Saturday, Sunday, even though they battled on Sunday and kind of got themselves back into the game, you don't really have a great sense of confidence right now with this unit, because honestly, who knows where these guys are. If you're missing the trigger man in your offense that you kind of was hoping to build around. That changes the way everything's going. Everything's going, and the fact that you didn't really put the ball in his hands in terms of being a passer, kind of it makes you question things anyway. But this is gonna be like I said, this is gonna be a tough game because Miles has been, they have been a tough opponent for them. Um, and they're always going to come to play. That Miles is coming off of a loss to West Alabama, 16-15. So they had a low scoring battle against West Alabama, in which they ran the ball for 81 yards and threw for 211. They allowed 184 on the ground and 133 through the air. They had no interceptions. They didn't turn the ball over in that game. So at least in that aspect for Miles, they took care of the ball. They did have one takeaway. They had 2 sacks as defense, and they also allowed 2 sacks. Um, with Miles, you're gonna get a team that they're gonna try to run the football. They're gonna, be a really sound team, and they have been the kind of team over the years that if you're not careful, if you come in and you're just not looking at this game right, they can make a game ugly, and next thing you know, they're in the game. Um, Cameron Ivory is the leading rusher. He had 44 yards on Saturday. At quarterback, Cameron Ivory is the quarterback. He was 17 or 34 with 211 yards and 2 touchdowns. So that's a guy you're going to have to keep your eyes on in the run game and the pass game. Um, Gennaro Scott led the running backs with 15 yards on the night. When they go to the air, Ja Andrews caught three catches for 65 yards. Also, Frank Pierre had 3 catches, 59 yards, and Javante Abner had 3 catches for 33 yards. Jaquel Fells had 4 for 31. So they spread the ball around pretty well to a bulk of guys. So, you kind of expect them to continue to do that in a game like this. Um, that makes it tough. Bama State defensively, they kind of were not as sharp as you would expect them to be from last season, but they showed some flashes, but they also gave up some big runs in spurts during that Central game. So I don't really have a lot of concern with Bama State defensively in this game. I think defensively they should be fine. Their running backs, Marcus Harris and AJ Gates, they both, had a couple solid runs. Harris and Daquan Kinsey both had pretty solid runs. John Marie Hosko had 18 yards on his only carry. So they do have guys to give the ball to. Your backs basically combined for 19 carries. Andrew Body ran the ball 15 times. That's not a lot, but I would rather my running back get more carries in a game like that, and he can throw the ball more than 6 times. The uncertainty with this offense under a new coordinator, and the fact that this team just did not look sharp at all in that game. Even though after all of that they still were in the game. Special teams returned for a touchdown by AJ Gates. Andrew Body 2 touchdown runs. Those are things that are not going to happen in every game. Especially if people are out. So right now, I just I really struggle to pick this game. I do think Bama State will win this game, but I think it's going to be ugly. I said before 24-10, even with guys available, Miles would make this ugly game. But now I'm going 14-10 Bama State because I don't even, I don't know where anything is with this team. So it makes it tough for me to look at it and say they're just gonna do X, Y, and Z to Miles. I do think they win, but I think it's gonna be an ugly game. which has been the case the last few years against Miles. I don't think it's going to be any different. So I got Bama State 14-10. Like I said, I came down from 24-10 because I just don't know, and I don't really have a lot of confidence in their offense right now. So that's that. The next game that we have on our schedule is Alabama A&M hosting Kentucky State. That's a 6 p.m. kickoff on the SWAC Digital Network. Bulldogs coming off of a loss to Auburn, 73-3. Um, Not a lot to really take from a game with a score like that. Like it is, it is really not. They did have, a couple of trips into the red zone. Um, they came up empty on both. They missed two field goals in the red zone, so they just, didn't really, they had a couple opportunities, took a sack in the red zone, was unable to score, and just finally did, they did kick a field goal, but not a lot to glean from that. Auburn was able to do everything that they wanted to do in that game. Um, Throwing the ball for 451 yards, they ran for 177. So they were able to do everything that they wanted to do. They finished the night with 3 sacks. Bama A&M didn't register a sack. So not a lot. Two takeaways for Alabama A&M. So that's a positive on defense. But not there's not much you can really take away from a game like this. So this is almost like playing another, playing a week one game because like I said, there's not much you can take away from this game, other than the fact that you played. So I'm not really gonna, really harp too much. The usual characters are there for the Bulldogs. You kind of expect a solid game this week from your running backs, Ryan Morrow and Donovan Eaglin. Quad Brown was the quarterback, so kind of expect him to kind of take a step forward in this game. The receivers are solid. Duke Miller has 6 catches for 92 yards in that game. That's a bright spot. Of course, Keenan Hambrick and Jacoby Hewitt are both there. So there's playmakers on this offense. Marvin Smith led the defense with 5 tackles. I think you just see a better team all around in this game. So not a lot to really take from that, but they face a Kentucky State team that lost 69-7 to Virginia Union. So they also are coming off of a really horrible loss. Um, so there's not a lot to be gleaned about the thoroughbreds. Um, Bama A&M should be fine in this game as long as they don't implode. They're facing a team that ran for 62 yards on the night and threw for 28 yards on the night. So they did not have any offense at all. Also threw 2 interceptions. When you finish with under 100 yards of offense, there's definitely not much to really look at there. So there's just this is an ugly matchup. Because two teams coming in off of ugly games. A couple of names to look at for Kentucky State. Not a lot that can be gleaned numerically, but uh, Denham Johnson had 45 yards rushing for the Thoroughbreds. He's also the quarterback. He was 5 of 14 for 28 yards. Um, Kyle Anderson had 2 catches for 18 yards to lead the team. Defensively, Isaiah Clay had 5 tackles. Lawrence McConnell had 5 tackles, and Trevor Vines had 5 tackles. So again, not a lot to take from this game, and I'm not going to waste a lot of time on this game. This should be a comfortable win for the Bulldogs. Um, I'm going to say 45-7. I think Kentucky State squeezed a touchdown in sometime in the second half. But I think the Bulldogs have a great home opener here and enjoy a win coming out for that Auburn loss. That takes us to our next game, and this is a matchup that a lot of people are looking at like from the historical aspect, and that's Tuskegee taking on Grambling. Of course, Tuskegee has been a team that's been a thorn in the side of a lot of SWAC teams. So you can never underestimate um, the Golden Tigers at all. They're gonna be game for this game for this game. But Grambling coming off of a game against ULL where they, they had opportunities here and there, a couple of turnover and had a turnover really hurt them. Had a rough second quarter, which allowed this game to get out of hand. And now I look for this team to run the ball more and establish a run with Hargrove and Bradford, who's selling into his role. Of course, Miles Crawley at quarterback should have a better game coming off of the game he had on Saturday. Um, Lots of guys to get the ball to. Nick Howard was the leading receiver with 68 yards on 5 catches. Of course, you have Javon Robinson, who's a guy who can break a big play at any time. And then Sean Dickerson, also a guy who Jacoby Bella's there. They have some guys there. Also, they have a lot of guys who can be a problem to a team if they can get the ball in their hands. I think this offense from Grambling is going to be really good once they kind of get themselves acclimated because I think their run game is going to be close to what it was last season. I don't know if they'll be on par with that duo of Williams and Chalk, but I think they had obviously they had the ability to they had two 4-star backs in their backfield. So the potential is there. Can they get going with this offense is going to be the key. Blake Davis led the defense with 8 tackles. He also had a tackle for loss and a sack and an interception. So, he's a guy who was able to make some things happen. I do expect this to be a better game for Grambling when you go from a FBS game down to a D2 game, which is not, there's not an easy game by any means, but, you become the team with some of the advantages instead of being the team that was playing, at a disadvantage. But Tuskegee comes into this game at 0-1, losing to Johnson C. Smith 21-13. They finished this game. Um, they finished this game with 50 yards on the ground, 1 touchdown. They also threw for 82 yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 interception. Allowed 229 yards on the ground and 161 through the air. So if you're a Grambling, you definitely want to focus on their run game because they had a lot of problems stopping the run, gave up 5.2 yards per carry. So they really struggled stopping the run. Defensively, they struggled to get off the field on third down, allowing 47%. And offensively, they were at 23% on third down. They did have 2 sacks, and they gave up 2 sacks. So, like I said, statistically for Grambling, they should focus on running the ball and defensively just trying to get pressure on their quarterbacks and making the offense uncomfortable. Johnny Morris led the team with 10 carries for 42 yards and a touchdown. Raekwon Beal was 9 of 17 at quarterback, 138 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. The leading receiver was Rodicus McGee with 2 catches for 47 yards. Also, Quavon Beckford had 2 catches for 44 yards. Reggie Brigman had 4 catches for 35 yards. So they had 3 guys with multiple catches, and they seem to want to spread it around. But Grambling, like I said, as long as they take care of themselves and play assignment football, they should be fine. K'Quan Kimber led the defense with 7 tackles, also had 1 tackle for loss, 1.5 sacks. He's going to be a guy you had to keep a lookout for. Charles Davis had 9 tackles, and Rossi Grimes had 9 tackles and 1 tackle for loss. So, like I said, I think Grambling, as long as they don't let last week beat them again, like their offensive coordinator like to say, as long as you don't let a loss beat you again, you should be fine. You don't want to look in the rearview mirror. It's straight ahead vision. So as long as they do that, I think they'll be fine in this game. I do think Tuskegee's gonna, I think they're gonna give it a go. They're not gonna lay down. They just, they're not that kind of team that's gonna come in and lay down. I'm not saying that they are all, anytime they play a game like this, they're always gonna be right there in the mix. But they're never gonna just come in and quit, and they're gonna fight. And Grambling, I think, is gonna, they're gonna be tested. I think Grambling is up to the task in this game, and this is a big game for Grambling, um, just to get some positive momentum, um, because the next week you play at at Texas A&M Commerce. So you're going FBS game, D2 game, then in the FCS game. You have two winnable games back to back before you get to before you host Jackson State on the 21st. So you really want to use this game and hopefully next week as a springboard to the rest of your season to stack up wins, because after Texas A&M Commerce, you have Jackson State and Prairie View back to back weeks, and Alcorn after a bye week. So you have three huge two of them are conference games, but you have three huge games against SWAC opponents in a row after these next two non-conference games. So I think it's important for Grambling to build that momentum now and play as clean of a game as you can against Tuskegee. And I think Grambling will do. I think they'll take care of business here. I like the Tigers to defeat the Golden Tigers by a score of 38-9. Like I said, I think Tuskegee's gonna be game. I think they're gonna give it a good old college trial, like they say. But I think with Grambling's run game, as long as they commit to it, I think that run game is gonna cause a lot of problems. And then Miles Crawley and those guys at receiver who have great speed are gonna be able to make some plays. The defense is gonna get the stops they need and get the ball back for the offense. And Grambling should be able to win this game comfortably at the in the later portions of the first half, early second half. I think they pull away. So that's that game. The next game we have is Jackson State hosting Lane College. That's also a 6 p.m. Central kickoff. Jackson State's coming in off of a game against ULM where they were this was a 14-14 game. In the second half, ULM was able to score 16 points going away in the second half, but JSU gave ULM problems. JSU showed some flashes, but they also showed that they still have some work to do. They did not run the ball good in this game. Only 59 yards on 24 carries. They allowed ULM to run for 204 yards. They really committed to running the ball against JSU. They ran about 41 times, only threw it 15. So they were determined to run, and they were determined to make JSU play great run defense. And JSU defense had their moments. They had some big tackles for loss. They did give them some problems here and there, but they just were unable to get the key stops. Whether it was a penalty or just a big play here and there, they just kind of turned the tide here and there. They just didn't really allow them to stay in the game. They did throw a crucial interception that allowed ULM to march down the field and score on the short field. So, some issues that kind of hurt them, but they, like I said, they did show some flashes. 227 yards through the air, one touchdown, one interception. Finished converting 41% on third down. Defense allowed 35% on third down conversion rate. They gave up 2 sacks. They registered 2 sacks. They were 1 for 1 in the red zone. So, I think this team, like I said, in all season, I think this team has a lot of potential. I think the running game is going to be solid when they get it going. Ahmad Miller led the offense with 46 yards on the ground, averaged 5.1 yards per carry. Travis Terrell had 12 yards on 6 carries. He also caught 6 passes for 45 yards. So that's a nice all-purpose type guy. I expect him to continue to get the ball in space and make plays. Fabian McCray had an uncharacteristic drop, so you don't really expect that from a receiver like that. But him, Rico Powers, Fortillians, these guys at receiver are gonna make plays, and you just have to trust your offense and and make that happen defensively. Just have to tighten up on the run game. I think coming into the season, if there were any questions for JSU, to me, it was on the defensive side of the ball. This game showed some flashes, but they, at the same time, they kind of still, have some more questions. And they're playing against a team in Miles who is coming into this game. This is their first game. So we haven't seen Miles in action at all. Um, Not a lot to really take away from this team. Um, I think JSU should, I think they'll take care of business in this game. Um, Miles Lane has been a team that can be dangerous to a bigger opponent, but I think JSU will be fine here at home. I think they take care of business, especially knowing they play Southern next week. So as long as they keep their eyes on Lane College, I think they'll be fine. I think JSU wins this game 42-12. I think Lane gets some late points, and I think they make it look a little bit better than what it is. But I think JSU is going to run the ball and run it often. I think the passing game will be there, and I think the defense gets those stops they need and makes the plays that they can make. And I think they control this game. The next game we have is Rice taking on Texas Southern. Coming in, this game obviously this game is a 6 o'clock start as well. Obviously in the preseason, I thought TSU would be coming into this game off of a loss. I'm not gonna lie to you. Me and probably everybody who wasn't affiliated with Texas Southern probably felt like this team would be coming in off of a typical loss to Prairie View, but they showed some really good things against PV and picked up a big win. So now instead of coming in trying to rebound off of a loss, they coming in off of a win, and that kind of boosts you. They kind of boost you a little bit because, like I said, they showed some solid flashes as a team on both sides of the ball. Like I've said, I think TSU has a lot of individual guys, but I think they played a great team game here, and I think they're gonna be a lot better than most of us thought. Now I don't know where they're gonna end up when the season when the smoke clears at the end of the season, but I think they are showing that they have the potential to be a factor in the West Division, which is wide ass open. So I don't think anybody did anything this week to kind of put their stamp on being kind of a front runner team in the West. So I think the Tigers, I think they're gonna be game in here. I think Coach Dishman has his team not afraid to play. I think they kind of sandbagged us a little bit by not really, letting out what they got, which is fine. But playing against Rice, who had a game against Sam Houston where they underachieved like hell in this game. They were favored to win this game, lost it by 20, fell behind big and never could get back in it, could not run the ball, finished with 65 yards rushing, 47 yards total net rushing, 227 through the air. They had one touchdown, 2 turnovers through the air, gave up 178 yards on the ground and 229 through the air. They also they did have 7 sacks as a defense. So they, even through all of that, they were able to generate some tremendous pressure on the quarterback. And so that that kind of gives you a cause for concern. Dean Connors led the team with 12 carries for 52 yards and a touchdown, averaged 4.3 yards per carry. EJ Warner had 27 of 44, 227 yards, 1 touchdown, and 2 interceptions. So, like I said, they didn't have a great game at all on any aspect. And EJ Warner is Kurt Warner's son. And Rams and Cardinals great quarterback, Kurt Warner. That's his son. He transferred from Temple and took the job this season. He's not a great quarterback, but he can spin it a little bit. Right, Rice, they just, they're never really gonna be a solid, a great team. Um, Matt Sykes caught 6 passes, 74 yards. Kobe Campbell had 4 for 53. Um, Bowden going had 5 for 43. Dean Connors caught 9 passes out the backfield, so they really leaned on him on in both aspects, running and receiving. Um, so I would definitely keep an eye out on him getting a bunch of targets in this game. Maybe they're trying to get him, in one-on-one situations and letting him make plays in space. But um, he actually led the team in receptions with 9. So I don't I guess that's like EJ Warner's safety blanket right now. So he's gonna kind of lean and get it in his hands. Josh Piercy led the defense with 7 tackles along with Gabriel Taylor. Um, the defense, like I said, they had a really aggressive day. 7 tackles, 7 sacks, 10 tackles for loss. They did give up 8 tackles for loss, so they allowed the offensive line allowed the Sam Houston defense to make some serious plays in the backfield. For TSU, Danny Green was a really great surprise at running back. True freshman, finished with 81 yards on 15 carries, 2 touchdowns. KJ Cooper went down with injury, but I'm pretty sure he's gonna play. He was 19 of 29 on the night, 1 touchdown, no interceptions. Receiving core is solid. AJ Bennett, Jaron Johnson, Trenton Leary, all those guys are gonna be able to make plays for you. I think this is the type of game where if you just don't come out and play scared, I think you give yourself a chance. Javis Williams, Isaiah Bogarty on defense, Michael Akins. I think the defense has a potential to get better if they can develop depth throughout the season. I think they're gonna. I think this might be a tight game early, but I think Rice pulls away. I say 30-12, especially because TSU's coming in off of a win, not a loss. I think they're gonna come in with their heads a little bit high, but higher than they typically come into these kind of games. But I think Rice is gonna try to prove a point from a horrible week 1. And like I said, I think this is gonna be a close game early, but I think Rice pulls away um, 30-12 and get their first win. Um, that takes us to our next game on the schedule, which is Southern hosting Savannah State. This is also a 6 p.m. kickoff on HBCU Go. Um, Southern, for me, the game for Southern is simple, man. You got to finish. Um, there were a few drives against McNeese where the offense had opportunity to get any kind of points and came up empty. Blocks field goal. They threw interception in the red zone, fumble on the first drive where you were driving. That's 3 drives that could have ended in at least 3 points apiece. So, number one, that's your main concern is finishing drives and playing smart football, helping the defense out and not allowing the defense to be on the field for long stretches because Southern defense was on the field a ton against McNeese, but they were able to keep holding on and holding on and holding on until those special teams mistakes, which are to me uncharacteristic special teams mistakes, but they do happen. But I think the defense gave it everything they had. They just couldn't continue to make plays once their back got up against the wall. All of a sudden, Clifton McDowell, he felt better. I don't know what the issue was with him not playing the bulk of the bulk of the second half and third quarter, but he was magically ready to play. They were magically more confident in him when they had the ball at the 6-yard line. But they were able to cash in 2 touchdowns and then put together a nice rushing drive to end the game. And so, like I said, to me, this is a game where I think Southern needs to establish themselves on both lines of scrimmage. They have to run the ball. Kobe Dillon, Kendrick Grimes, C.J. Russell, those guys have to make plays. They have to, the offensive line didn't play as bad as I expected against Magnesia. I thought they played a lot better than they played most of last season. So they have the open holes, and they have to dominate an opponent that they're bigger and stronger than. Savannah State was not good last season. They're gonna be feisty. This is their first game of the season, so they're gonna come in and try to make some waves. They're hungry. They're excited to play in this game. Seeing a couple of their players say they were kind of looking forward to playing in this game. So they're gonna wanna kind of come out and show something too. They want to pop out and show something too. So for Southern, you have to just get off to a good start. You have to put together some drives. You have to cash them in 2 points, and you have to allow your defense to not have to play as much. Because the offense didn't finish like I would like last week. I'm gonna say Southern wins this game, by a pretty comfortable margin, because I think the defense is gonna have a great game against Savannah State. I think the offense probably get a couple short fields and be able to score. I like Southern 28-7, but I think it's gonna be a game where it's kind of, I don't think if you're in Mumford, you're gonna be sitting kind of comfortable all game. There's gonna be some moments where Savannah State kind of have you maybe looking a little bit of a way, but I think Southern finds a way to pull this one out. I think the offense will do enough, and I think the defense probably will continue to carry this team at least for the next few weeks, to the offense kind of hopefully find some rhythm. If you're a Southern fan, but I think they take care of business against a team who is playing their first game of the season. So Southern having a game under their belt, I think that helps as well, and give them an opportunity to pick up a much needed win and get ready for Jackson State next week, which is obviously a huge game. And you don't want to get caught looking forward to that game either. So it's kind of like you need to be 100% focused on these guys. You can't overlook them, knowing that JSU is next, because you're just not in that position to look at a game that way. So that takes us to our next game, which is another game that my idea of this game kind of changed a bit after Saturday. That's Prairie View at Northwestern State. This game is this game is a 6 p.m. kickoff as well. Basically every game but two 6 p.m. kickoffs. There are a couple 6:30 kickoffs and a 6:30 and a 7 o'clock kickoff, but this is a 6 p.m. kick. Northwestern State coming off of a tumultuous season last season, where they had to cancel their season after the death of one of their players. There was some controversy in that decision. Some of the players felt like the administration made that move without really, thinking of them. They kind of wanted, some of those guys kind of still wanted to play, but the die was cast and the season was canceled. A lot of guys left in the portal. They have pretty much a new team, new coach, a new attitude. They played Tulsa on Thursday, lost 62-28. Obviously the score is bad, but I think they had their moments. This score was a 14-14 first half. First quarter was 14-14. Just like Pine Bluff and Tulsa last season, this was a close game in the first quarter. A huge second quarter is the difference in this game. Tulsa scored 27 points in the second quarter, and then both teams scored a couple of touchdowns in the second half. Kenneth Lacey had a 75-yard run for Northwestern State to actually get them on the board. They led this game 7-0. They had a block field goal return for a touchdown as well. So they were able to, generate some points in various ways in this game. They finished with 114 yards on the ground. Excuse me, they finished with 65 yards. No, yeah, 114. Everybody box score lists the total yards and net yards in different spots. They finished with 114 yards on the night, only 112 through the air. So not a great offensive night, but they were able to hit some plays here and now. 226 total offense. no turnovers. They did give up. Obviously, when you give up 60 plus points in a game, you're gonna give up yardage. They gave up over 300 on the ground. So if you Prairie View, you definitely want to run the football. The running performance you had last week, it has to be better. The opportunity is there because they do give up a ton of yards on the ground. They gave up 7.9 yards per carry and 3 touchdowns. They also gave up 299 yards through the air, 23 or 30, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. Um, Allowed 8.8 yards per play. They did have one fumble recovery on the night. They were 3 of 12 on third down, gave up 9 of 13 on third down. Um, and they only gave up one sack on the night, so they did a pretty decent job protecting their quarterback. But this is still a relatively new team to each other, so there's still a lot of leeway there. Uh, Quatarius Hawkins and JT Fayard both played pretty equal. Both had about 55 yards for Fayard through there, 57 for Hawkins. Hawkins did have a touchdown. Um, Kenneth Lacey finished with 72 yards on the night. 75 of that came on a run, long run for a touchdown. He had 7 carries. Zay Davis had 10 carries for 37 yards. Receivers, Amaz Eugene had 2 for 34. Kareem Cotton had 3 for 31. Chance Norman had 1 for 18. They were led by Blake Gocher with 11 tackles. Willie White had 8 tackles and 1 tackle for loss. Like I said, it didn't have a sack. So there's still a lot of question marks for this team. But to me, this game is more about Prairie View than it is about Northwestern State to me. I saw a lot of things that were okay in the TSU game, but I saw some problems. The inability to really generate anything on the ground definitely hurt. You finished with 21 yards rushing. You only had 61 total yards. You really only ran about 21 times. You threw it 40, and that's the way their offense is going to be, more of a passing offense. But with a team that like Prairie View has been such a run-oriented team the last few years, I think you still need to have that in your bag. So I would like to see them run the ball more this week, because I think Northwestern State is susceptible to the run. So I think if you're going to win this game, I think you have to be able to run the ball and run it well. You got to improve on that. That's just there's no way that you're going to win this game running the ball for less than like 150 yards. The passing attack, who's at quarterback? That's a question. Peters and Cooley, they both they both got it basically like a half. They both had some plays. They had some drops. The defense, I don't think the defense played bad. I think the defense was kind of in some positions that may not have been beneficial for them, but they gave up some big plays. So they have some cleaning up to do. But I think this game is predicated by Prairie View's offense. If they show up and play better than they did against TSU, I think they have a great shot in this game. If they don't, then obviously I don't think it's gonna work out for them. And like I say, I don't like one game to change my perception of things, especially like week 1. But that game really kind of tweaked my expectations of this game. And like the Northwestern State, they didn't play a great game against Tulsa. They had a good first quarter. They had 2 explosive touchdowns, one on a special teams great play and one on a run. So I don't know if this team is able to consistently move the ball down the field, but I don't really know where Prairie View is right now, because I did not anticipate them losing to Texas Southern. How this team is going to come into this game mentally is a question now. I still like Prairie View in this game, but I just have a feeling that TSU game is kind of gonna show some issues that this team is gonna have throughout the season. And Northwestern State, for all their flaws, they are a team that typically plays a little bit better at home. So I like the Demons 24-16. I think there's gonna be another game that comes down to late score. I do hope if PV can run the ball, I think they win. To me is that simple. If they can run the ball, they win. Um, can they run the ball? That's gonna be the question. They have the guys to do it, so they have to commit to it and try to make that happen. The next game we have is Alcorn going to Nashville to take on Vandy. Excuse me. We got Valley and Lamar. I skipped that game. Um, Valley, Valley had a rough Saturday against Tennessee State. Fell behind huge. Was able to score some points and kind of make the game look a little bit better than what it was, but that was a Valley type of game. Tajarian Williams went down to injury. He's healthy now, so he should be ready to play. Um, they didn't really they weren't able to do a lot. They ran the ball for 69 yards. They threw for 195 yards, two touchdowns, one interception. Defensively gave up 357 yards through the air, 138 on the ground. Um, they just have to get off to a better start. Um, that there's no you can't start slow in games, especially on the road. And when you do that, you put yourself in a position to where you're trying to play catch up now. And Valley is not built for that. And you playing a team in Lamar who had a really competitive game against Texas State uh, on Saturday. They lost the game 34-27. So you're looking at a team who is probably going to be a tough task. This game, um, basically, the score was 21-10 going into the third quarter, and then Lamar scored 17 points in the fourth quarter to kind of make this a tighter game than what it was. But when you do that against an FBS opponent, your offense and defense are capable. They threw the ball for 237 yards. They ran it only for 51. So that's kind of an issue for them. But to still be in the game after only running for 51 yards and giving up 213 on the ground and 237 through the air, something broke your way. Kundon Facilier had 6 catches for 107 yards for the Cardinals, so he had a big game. Robert Coleman was 16 of 34 for 237, 2 touchdowns. He was sacked 7 times, so they really could not protect the quarterback at all in this game. Christian Pugh had 10 tackles, 1 tackle for loss. Ken Savannah had 8 tackles, 1 tackle for loss. They finished the night with 1 sack. So to me, I think Valley's gonna have a tough time in this game. This is their second game on the road. I think Lamar, like I said, they had a pretty solid game, even though the numbers weren't great. I think they win this game. I'm gonna say 31-13. I think Valley can get some points here and there, but I don't think they are gonna really be in this game for long stretches, especially if they play like they did Saturday. I don't think it's gonna look good for them. And then that takes us to our next to last game on the docket, and that's Vandy hosting Alcorn. Vandy got a big win against Virginia Tech on Saturday. Really unexpected by most people. Vandy is always typically a bottom dweller, but they were able to pick up a big win in overtime. In a game they led 17-0, so they actually jumped out on Virginia Tech, who is a team who a lot of people are high on in the ACC. But Vandy was able to make some things happen and find themselves with their first Power Five, Power Four, whatever you want to call it, opening season win since like 2005. So this was a huge game for them to win. So I think they're gonna obviously come in this game, looking to continue the rhythm that they had. They ran for they threw for 190. ran for 181, gave up 75 yards on the ground to a Virginia Tech team that wants to run the ball. They did go with 322 through the air, but like I said, they just were able to just make the plays that they needed. Um, they have a new quarterback, Diego Pavia from New Mexico State. He had not a great passing game, 12 or 16 for 190 yards, 2 touchdowns. He was sacked twice, but he made a lot of damage on the ground, ran for 104 yards and a touchdown. Cedric Alexander ran for 69 yards and a touchdown. They lost Will Shepard, who was their all everything receiver. He went to Colorado, so there's guys looking to take his spot. Quincy Skinner had 4 catches for 72 yards and a touchdown. Eli Stores had 2 for 46. Defensively, um, they were led by Langston Patterson. He had 10 tackles on the night, 1 tackle for loss. Brian Longwell had 9 tackles, half a tackle for loss. Alcorn coming off of a game, the UAB, they lost 41-3. I thought the offense struggled in this game. I think they really couldn't get any rhythm at all on the ground or through the air. They did finish with 117 yards on the ground, only 60 through the air. So they just, they couldn't find a rhythm on the ground. Defensively, I thought they made some plays here and there. They did force, I think they forced, 3 turnovers. So, they were able to, put UAB in some uncomfortable spots, but the offense, really struggled to make anything happen. I hate back-to-back FBS games. I hate them with a passion. So I don't really see a lot from Alcorn in this game because I just think playing these 2 games like this, and especially against a Vandy team that's higher than normal, I think it's going to be tough. But Alcorn, I think the defense is going to show up to play. Can the offense generate some numbers, especially through the air? That's going to be a key. I like Vandy in this game, 37-10. And that takes us to our final game, and that's Valley. That's Pine Bluff taking on Arkansas Baptist. Pine Bluff is nothing really to take away from the Arkansas game. They did not really do anything. And I'm not trying to be mean, but they did not do anything worthy of any kind of discussion in that game. When you give up 56 points in the first half, you lose 70-0. You really don't move the ball much at all, and you obviously don't really stop this team much at all. That's one of those games you want to just get rid of. You just want to flush it and move on. And I think that's that's where I am. So I'm not really gonna look at that game any kind of way. I think this is like a fresh start. This is like week 1 really for them. This is a game that they should win. They're playing Arkansas Baptist, who they did not show. They had a game on Saturday, but they did not show a result from that game. So I don't, I think this is a game that Pine Bluff should honestly, they should be able to win this game rather comfortably. You just, you want to you want to come out early, take care of business, get some points, get some offensive rhythm. This team, when you look at their guys, they're not a big team at all, man. Most of their receivers are like under 6 foot. Their backs aren't that big. So you figure you look at the offensive line. Pine Bluff should have the size advantage there. Everybody on the team is like most of these guys. And I'm not trying to shade these guys, but they're not a big team at all. So I think Pine Bluff should be able to dominate the line of scrimmage on both sides and and hit some explosive plays, get some touchdowns on some big plays, and send your home fans home happy, man. If you have any kind of struggle in this game, I think you have a lot of soul searching to do. because this is a game I just think you should win going away. Um, like I said, I think Arkansas Baptist maybe surprises them with a big play here and gets a touchdown, but I think Pine Bluff win this game 48-7. Um, I think they do whatever they want to do and get ready for the next week. So that's gonna do it for today's show, man. I thank y'all for sticking with me and rocking with me. We'll be back on Sunday to recap all these games, man. Week 1 and 2 are like the longest weeks when it comes to looking at these games because there's games that like everybody's playing, and nobody's off yet. So it's a slog, man, and they're all non-conference games. A lot of them D2 games, a lot of them FBS games. So not a lot of games that have meaning here. Things do start to pick up slightly next week. So we'll start to really dive into some more stuff. But with that being said, man, I'm your tour guide around the SWAC C Well signing out, and I will catch y'all on the rebound. Peace.